looking up. I'm just praying that's a good enough shot. Oh my gosh. That was a nice buck. Hey guys, so I just got all set up in my tree stand and it is super late. It's probably about 6 o'clock or a little after 6 and shooting hours at around 7:30. We just got up here really late and got a really slow start, but I'm in the stand, so that feels good. I'm sitting in a stand I think that they're calling Middle Road or something. I've never sat in the stand. My dad and uncle just set it up this year. But basically I'm on the edge of a cut cornfield that they probably just recently cut. Then there's a tube track, and I'm on the edge of some thick cedar swamp. The wind is blowing right into the thick cedar swamp, which is what I want. Because the deer just walk this edge, or we'll be out in the field is what I'm thinking. So, we'll see what happens. My dad is also out. He's sitting in a stand we call Tree Climber, which is where I shot a doe last year on the day before opening day of gun season. And so that's a alfalfa field surrounded by some cedar swamp too, so see what happens.
With 5 minutes left of legal shooting light, I finally saw my first group of deer. I had 3 doe coming along the road, and the front one was the biggest one, and so I was able to get drawn back, but she was very spooky. And as I was just able to settle my pin on her slightly, one of the smaller ones steps in front of my line of fire, so I have to hold it and not take the shot. And right after that happens, they all spooked and ran out of there, and that was kind of the rest of that night. Definitely disappointing to miss that opportunity, but was looking forward to seeing what the rest of the weekend had in store.
It's a little after 8:30, and I'm finally getting my interview in here. So far, I've seen it was a group of 3 or 4 doe out in front of me, and actually, as I was going to park at the property, I saw a nice 6 or 8 boy leaving our property and going to the neighbors. But it's been a good morning, beautiful, perfect morning. It's been in the mid-50s probably. One of the cooler weather days we've had in a little while, so that's good. But this spot, last year I took a doe out of here when they freshly cut this cornfield that's to my left. But right now that's still standing. And so the deer I saw are about 60 yards in front of me on this runway that they enter the field all the time. So I've just been kind of holding off because that group of doe could be out in the field milling around, or they worked their way off towards another stand and off our property. So got a little bit of time left to see if something else happens, but probably getting down about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and might rearrange some stuff to get prepped for the evening. So we're gonna just settle in here and just see what happens for the rest of the morning.
I'm back at camp right now, and I'm about to take a few shots with my bow. I bumped something on the arrow rest, so I'm just verifying that it's still shooting fine. So just wanted to zing a couple arrows, make sure I'm still dialed in, and then gonna just call it good and hang for a little bit. It turned out that my bow definitely was shooting off. I was hitting much further to the left, but I was able to re-sight in, and I'm dialed in. I'm good. So it's good to have the target here at camp so that I could just get that figured out. That way I'm able to still hunt and make sure I'm doing it safely and doing it the right way. So show you guys a little bit of camp and then catch up with you guys probably as I'm going to head to the woods in a little bit. So this right here is our view from our camp. So we stay at the in the camper, which is right on our property, and have water and electric hookup, which is really nice. So we're able to have all the electricity and take our showers, do all that good stuff. We've actually got like a barn that you can see behind me there. We're able to store a little bit of stuff in. It's not that nice, but it's a place to throw some extra stands and whatnot in. And so it's a pretty cool setup. We're very blessed, very fortunate, and definitely really love it up here. There's just nothing like northern Michigan. All right, so I just parked. I'm about to grab my bow, grab my backpack, and make the walk to the tree stand. About 4:45. Legal shooting is about 7, a little before 7:30. So we're gonna stick it in until then, see what happens. I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful, hoping that we both, my dad and I, see a lot and potentially could even get a shot at something. So, all right, I'm gonna quiet down here and just enjoy the night and see what happens. As the night moved on, I had a couple doe cut across the field about 65 yards out from me, working away from me. Just before they left the field, the bigger one decided to turn and start heading my way. Once she reached about 20 yards, she turned and started to walk towards my opening. Unfortunately, as soon as I drew the bow back, she heard me and stopped in her tracks and stared right at my direction for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, she finally made up her mind at what she was going to do. Meh, meh, meh. After missing the opportunity on that doe and having her bust out of there like she did, I did eventually see a couple of deer on the far side of the field, but nothing ever came in and presented me with another opportunity. Once again, a really close call, but I was going to have to wait another day to see if I'd have better luck.
It's the morning of October 16th, and I'm sitting in a stand called Cedar Bypass. Basically, like I'm sitting in a cedar tree, which provides some nice cover. And off to my left is a big ridge, and at the top of that ridge there's some crop fields. Over to my right is a standing cornfield about 35 yards away. Straight out in front of me, probably 80, 100 yards is another field. So with this spot, you got some lowland area behind you, and there's actually a nice bedding area, I think, back behind probably 80, 100 yards. So this area is just kind of a transition area, trying to catch the deer coming from feeding to go to bed. Trying to look, see what will happen this morning. Very windy day.
It's about 9:50 now, and I'm back at the car. I just shedded a few layers. I'm meeting up with my dad right now, and then we're gonna go check some trail cameras. He's gonna show me where a couple of the new tree stands are, just in case we want to hunt those tonight, and so I just know them for the future. Didn't end up seeing anything. My dad didn't either. It was very uneventful out there. It's supposed to be pretty windy throughout the rest of the day, but trying to decide where makes the most sense to sit. I'm kind of thinking between like 3 stands that I currently know, not any of these new ones. I'm considering going back to where I went the first night just because of the sightings I had. The wind is decent for it, but not perfect. Another stand is kind of my old reliable. It's called Ed. The wind with that I think is decent, not perfect, but it could be doable. That's a stand that I've had like a lot of success out of over the years. Then there's another one called Standout that I know it's a good wind for, and last year I saw a really nice buck out of it. So I don't know what I'm gonna do, just kind of thinking through all the options, but we'll see what I decide as the day goes on and as the night gets closer. So stay tuned. Here we go. I'm on my way over to property to go hunt for the last time. I'm just driving over to the parking spot, which will take just a second here. I decided I'm gonna go stand out. The wind is good for it, and last year it was a very good spot for some sightings. Last year I saw a big buck out of there this time of year. Super excited to get out there and give it a last go. So grab my stuff, get to the stand.
It's in the 50s today. Got like a west wind which is blowing right in my face. This spot is kind of on the edge of an alfalfa field that leads up into a cornfield on our property. I'm kind of in the corner of it. And then back up in front of me to my left about 80 yards is the neighbors. I think it's an alfalfa field or rye, something along those lines. And I'm about probably 35, 40 yards from the property line. And there's this road right to my side. And the deer run this road like crazy. And then just kind of cut through this tall grass stuff and even bed in this tall grass stuff that's out in front of me. And that kind of, this tall grass stuff splits the middle of our field and the neighbor's field. Eventually we're gonna get a ground blind set up in that stuff, but just hasn't happened yet. So it's a good spot. Again, last year I saw a really big buck out of here. My dad almost got a shot on a nice big 5-point that we had running around last year. Just had a spike on the one side and 4 points on the other, and just a beast of a deer. And my dad was chasing him around all year and just never caught up to him. So we know that there's historically been good deer in this area. So we'll see what happens. Gonna settle in here and just see what the night brings.
Matt.
I just had a stud of a buck come in. He was slightly courting to me. I took a shot, and I know I hit it, but it didn't get a ton of penetration, so I don't know what I'm looking at. Oh, I'm shaking up. I'm just praying that's a good enough shot. Oh my gosh. That was a nice buck. He came in probably on the road to my left. And I just was waiting. He was coming straight at me. So as soon as I saw him, I drew back. He turned a little bit. I was able to squeeze the shot in. And I know I got it behind the shoulder. It looked like it was kind of, it looked like the up down was good, I think. There's a lot of arrow in them. So, I don't know, like I know you might not get as much penetration with the, I don't know why I'm talking so quiet.
I know you don't get as much penetration necessarily with the expandables. Can't believe it. I did not expect that. I was honestly just kind of almost writing off this hunt and getting ready to head back, and I look over and I could just see this rack, and I was like, oh, that is a nice buck. It was a no doubt shooter, and we're in an APR zone. My gosh, that wind, you guys probably can barely hear a word I'm saying. All right, I'm gonna text my dad and then get down in a couple minutes, give it a little bit of time, just to see the first little bit of blood, and then back out and make a game plan with my dad. He ran onto the neighbors, so we're gonna shoot a text over to them. So the guy's cool though, like he's not gonna care if we track it over there, it's just to notify him, so stay tuned.
After about 20 minutes, I got down from my stand and just began to look for the first little bit of blood, just to get an idea of what I was working with. At the time, I thought that the hit was back of lungs, liver, and potentially some gut as well, but I was not positive, so I just wanted to see that first little bit. And unfortunately, as I got up there, it took me forever to even find a speck of blood. And when I finally did, it was only like a little spot like that. And there was only a couple of drops and then nothing. After finding the first few drops of that, my dad and another guy who lives up there joined up to try helping track, and we could not find anything. And so we decided to back on out of there and just come back in the morning. And so the next morning we came back, and I found one more speck of blood, and that was it. There was just nothing to be found. So we scoured the area for a couple of hours and just still could find nothing. And it was at that point that the guy that was helping us track gave us the number to a guy in the area who's actually a conservation officer. And this year, apparently, he had just trained a dog to go and track deer. And so we gave him a call, and sure enough, he was able to come out and help us try recovering this deer. And this dog, it was apparently its very first time actually going in the field to try recovering a deer. And we bring them to the spot of the shot, and the dog starts picking up the trail, and away we go. And we're following this dog, and we are not finding any blood along the way. We're not seeing any sign that the deer went this way. And this dog ends up taking off going across this whole field. And we're following it for about a mile, and we still are not seeing anything. And so we're all kind of thinking that the dog might be off track. But it was at that point that we found a speck of blood where the dog was. And then we started to just continue following, and we could see not too far from where we were, there's some swampy area, and there's a bunch of crows flying up over top. So we were kind of thinking that if that deer is down, it was down in that swamp. And sure enough, the trail that the dog took led us right to that swamp. And once we got to the swamp, then the blood trail really opened up. And not long after we got into that swamp, we found my buck. It was a nice Michigan 9-point that there was no way I would have ever found if not for this dog. And I was so relieved and so excited to find it, and just really so blessed in so many ways that I had the opportunity of harvesting it, and I definitely just did not get the shot I wished I would have on it. I wished I would have had a better hit. As it turned out, I think I probably got gut and not maybe liver, but we just couldn't tell because coyotes actually beat us to it. And so I didn't get as much meat out of it, unfortunately. But recovering that deer was just meant so much, and it was so cool, the experience of seeing this dog do its thing, and the fact that that dog can take us over a mile to this deer, staying on a trail that we had no idea was there, was just amazing. And I would have not recovered this deer if it wasn't for that dog. And so once we got there and got the deer recovered, we ended up just quartering it up in the field, because I only was able to get the front shoulders out of it, and then just took the cape and stuff, and we ended up packing it out, which I've never done before, but it was pretty cool experience doing that. And man, it was a heck of a weekend, and I had a lot of opportunities. I was drawn back on deer, I think 4 times over the course of 3 days, and sure enough, at the last day, I was blessed to be able to harvest my best buck yet. And while I didn't get it on video, which was definitely a bummer, the experience of it all was second to none. And I didn't get as much of the tracking on video because I was honestly so down in the dumps. I really was not happy. It was a rough couple of days, and I just felt like crying. I was sick to my stomach for those couple of days, and I just didn't feel like filming. But once, you know, recovering that deer, it was such a relief. And yeah, I wish I would have had more to show you guys on that, but I hope in the future, as I continue to be filming these hunts, that I have even better footage for you, and that you guys keep tuning back into my channel to check out what I got going on here. So thank you guys for watching, and hope that you guys are having a great hunting season out there, and you guys are staying safe, and that you're just blessed in your time in the woods.